been a long time coming, but we're finally bringing you the first episode of the Dugout Podcast for the All-Star Sluggers Fantasy Baseball League. I'm Kyle Bennett, and I'm joined by last year's champion, Noah Papiano. We got a lot to talk about. We've been kind of pushing this back until everyone's been done school, but we got the first 6 weeks of the season to talk about, so we've got draft info to talk about. We've got trades that went down, standings, new teams, and we'll also be giving you your Yahoo or DraftKings players to look for today. And hopefully we're going to turn this into a weekly podcast. So let's get started. So to start with the draft, first pick obviously was Mike Trout. The draft order was randomized, so the first pick went to Johnny Malatesta, owner of Dropping Cage Bombs. And already Mike Trout has been traded.
Yeah, it's nuts. It was a shocker.
It was one of those things where I was talking to Jason that night, and his team name is Angels in the Trout Field, so it kind of made sense for him to want to go after Trout, but the fact that he was able to get him while he was slumping, like 3.5 weeks into the season, I looked at the trade and my mouth just dropped. If we just go take a look at that trade, breaking it down for what actually got moved, we had Mike Trout go to Angels in the Trout Field for Troy Tulowitzki, Carlos Gomez, Jeurys Familia, and Colin McHugh. 3 struggling players in Tulowitzki, Gomez, and McHugh. You have a closer on a potential playoff team who pitches nearly almost every night for the Mets when they're in close games. But to move guys like that for a caliber of a player of Mike Trout, it's
just unheard of. You don't really hear about that.
Especially that early in the season. You have Mike Trout, who is one of, if not the best player in baseball right now, getting moved for what it looks like on paper right now, 4 subpar players.
Yeah, exactly. They're just average bench players. Not even bench, but I mean they're starters, just average starter players. Nothing really special. I mean, Troy Tulowitzki, he's a good shortstop. He injury prone. Carlos Gomez is injury prone. Like, just 2 out of 4 of them are.
And Tulowitzki this year hasn't been what everyone thought he would be in that Toronto lineup, loaded with himself, Bautista, Kevin Pillar, Josh Donaldson, guys like that. You'd think that would protect Tulowitzki with his hitting, but he's been struggling pretty much all year. Carlos Gomez has not been what the Astros expected when they traded for him last year from Milwaukee. They kind of gave up a lot to get him, and he just hasn't produced. Looking at his numbers this year, he's hitting 186 with 5 RBIs and 4 stolen bases. Like, that's nothing for a guy who was an all-star, I believe, 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, Troy Tulowitzki isn't any better. He's at 185. I mean, 8 home runs and 20 RBIs, but
the batting average is what's killing him, so it's proving he's not getting on base. He's either striking out or grounding out or flying out. Like, he's not getting on base. He's just getting out. Colin McHugh, you take a look at him. He's kind of rebounded a little bit. He's got 4 wins on the year. His ERA is a little high, upwards of 5. A 1.71 whip with 30 strikeouts. He started off pretty slow. Opening day against the Yankees, gave up 5 earned runs in a third of an inning. Then he rebounded against Kansas City, lost to Detroit, lost to Boston, rebounded the last 3 starts against Seattle, Minnesota, and Seattle again, and then a no decision yesterday against Boston. But, you know, at the time of the trade, he wasn't producing until now. And then you take a look at Jeurys Familia. He's up there in one of the leaders in saves, a 2.65 ERA, 12 saves in 17 innings pitched with 14 strikeouts. I mean, that, from what the stats show, Jeurys Familia was your centerpiece of that trade.
Yeah, as a closer. It's a closer, not even a
starter that's going to go every 5th day and put up potentially 20 points. A closer that at max can give you 9 points with the innings pitched and strikeouts. So to have a closer be the centerpiece of a trade did not make sense to me.
Me neither.
And then we look at the second trade that went down between myself and the Men of Steel, the owner being Sam Merkley, another new team, just like Angels in the Trout Field. I was able to send off Tyler White, a guy who was hitting pretty hot for the Houston Astros, first base and third base eligibility, as well as sending my 9th round draft pick next year to the Men of Steel for the Washington Nationals, new second baseman, Daniel Murphy, and I acquired the Men of Steel's 10th round draft pick next year. I upgraded a little bit there because I gained another position of eligibility with Murphy, got rid of a guy who was kind of hot, and now he's slowed down a lot. And Daniel Murphy, I believe, is hitting over 400 this season. If we take a look at his stats for the year, he's been one of the best players in baseball. He's hitting 403, 5 home runs, 23 RBIs with 1 stolen base. In a Nationals lineup that has Bryce Harper, when he's right, you got Ryan Zimmerman with him, and you also have guys like Jason Worth, Ben Revere. So he's going to hit, no matter where you put him. I think he's going to hit. And he's hitting for average, which is big because that shows he's getting on base and has the potential to score runs.
He's playing every day. Playing every day hitting 403. You don't hear of that.
And in the fantasy realm, to have a guy who has first, second, and third base eligibility, that's huge. Because you have options to put him in your lineup in 3 different spots. But if we take a look at how our draft went as well, the draft overview for this year, we cut down our league size from 12 to 10 teams. So far, I'm liking that format.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I'm enjoying it. More options to pick from. You're not struggling in the later rounds trying to just pick.
You're not struggling in later rounds, and you're not struggling in waiver pickups and free agency trying to find the next hot commodity that's going to be hot for 2 weeks, and then you're going to end up dropping him.
Yeah.
You have kind of a more solidified lineup. But if we take a look at the rounds, how they went down, of course, we said earlier Mike Trout went first. You had the second overall pick, which I was so pissed about because you won the league last year, and then you get the chance to pick. Even if Mike Trout falls, you have a chance to pick one of the top 2 players in the league.
I know.
You get your boy Paul Goldschmidt back.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical at number 2. I don't like picking really high because there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. But before when I heard that I got number 2, I was like Mike Trout's gonna go first, and then I was like Goldschmidt or Bryce Harper, because Clayton Kershaw is a great pitcher, but I don't think it's worth getting a pitcher in the first round. You might as well go big hitter. But I looked at the 2. I read some articles on who to pick, and it was just a toss up. It was a coin flip. And I was just like, you know what, Paul Goldschmidt led me last year to the championship. I'm just gonna ride with him again this year, and so I went with him. He's not doing terrible this year, but he's not doing fantastic. But he's striking out a lot more. But that's gonna come with the power. But I've been happy with it. Hopefully he's gonna start getting hot once the summer comes. So we'll see. But yeah, he's hitting
if we take a look at
266, which is okay, but he has 7 home runs, 19 RBIs.
And he's walking a lot. He's got 36 walks this year, and he scored 20 runs. He's stolen 3 bases for a first baseman to be stealing bases. That's pretty big.
Yeah, he's on a team who's they're just average. The loss of AJ Pollock is a big miss for them. They're not like the Dodgers. They're not like other teams who are just have people to back.
And I think that whole division has been weak. The NL West has not been what a lot of people hyped it up to be this year. A lot of big free agents went in that division or stayed in that division and went to different teams like Zach Greinke. You had Johnny Cueto, who has been really good, who you obviously were able to pick up. Went to San Francisco. Jeff Samardzija went to San Francisco. And then you had Shelby Miller get traded to Arizona, and he's been an absolute disaster. So there was a lot of movement around in that NL West, but they haven't been really good. And you take a look at that division, if the Phillies were in that division, the surprise team of all of baseball, they'd be in first place. So that just shows how much of a struggle the NL West has been this season. And then we take a look, speaking of the NL West, 3rd overall pick was Clayton Kershaw to my sister's team, who's been a surprise team again, picking up where she left off last year, making that surprise run at the playoffs, getting the 6th seed, currently sitting in the standings 3rd overall, 2nd in her conference just by points. She's got a 4-1 record. She's been tearing it up this year. And we take a look at the 4th pick, the first new team to the league, the Men of Steel, was taking Bryce Harper, 4th overall.
Which you can't do better than that.
That was an absolute, no pun intended, a steal for him. Harper's been one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Brigantine Brigade bring back their franchise guy from last year, AL MVP Josh Donaldson. I got to pick at the 6th position and get the multi-position player Manny Machado. At first, he was struggling to begin the year. I was calling him Manny Machado dope because he just was striking out and he wasn't getting on base. And now, take a look at Machado's stats for the year. He's been tearing it up these past couple of weeks. With third base and shortstop eligibility, too, that's helped me a ton. He's put up 176 fantasy points so far this year. He had a really big breakout year last year. He's got 49 hits, 29 runs, 12 walks, 10 home runs. He's hit, I believe, 2 grand slams, 23 RBIs, and he struck out 24 times while only committing 2 errors. So to get him at the 6th position in the draft in the first round was big time.
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier with that pick. And then we take a look at the second new team to pick, which was the Turtle Squad. Frank Aponte. He takes Jose Bautista, everybody's favorite guy to follow on Twitter.
Yeah.
Not a bad pick. We thought when he was drafting there, Jose Bautista, that's a solid pick in the first round, especially for the outfield position. Then we take a look at Angels in the Trout field with their first pick, Giancarlo Stanton. Started off the year pretty slow. He's been heating up as soon as these warmer months have been heading down to South Beach. Stanton, great pick at number 8. We take a look at last year's runner-up, the Blue Ballers, Dylan Mazzola, Nolan Arenado, a real big surprise last year at third base for the Rockies. He's been tearing it up yet again this year. 13 home runs, 32 RBIs, hitting over 300 for a team that nobody really saw as a threat in the NL West, but with how bad they are,
Figured they were going to be in
anybody could be taking that division. And they've also had the story of baseball with player-wise with Trevor Story. So the Rockies have been a big surprise this year, too, with hitting. And then the final new team, probably my biggest fantasy sports rival, Mikey Ostrowski, the Dingers, gets my boy Carlos Correa, who I picked up last year. As soon as he came up with the Astros, I was highly upset that he took Correa from me.
Yeah.
He's a stud of a player for the Astros, who have been struggling this year. So Correa hasn't
started off hot. Man.
Yeah, they definitely started off pretty hot. But Correa this year hasn't been what he was last year. He's starting to heat up a little bit. He's got the same amount of strikeouts as he does hits with 38. 6 home runs, 18 RBIs, 23 walks, only 5 stolen bases. But he's a franchise player.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And then with the wraparound, Mikey was able to pick up multi-position player, second one to go off the board, Chris Bryant from Chicago Cubs. Can't argue with that pick.
No. I think he's hitting 283 this year. I mean, he's hitting the ball.
And to be able to put him in your infield or your outfield or your utility spot.
It's really big.
And some other key picks. We had Miguel Cabrera go in the second round. Buster Posey I was able to retain from last year. David Price also went right before my pick. Chris Sale, who's probably been, if not the best pitcher in baseball, definitely the best pitcher in the American League.
Top three for sure.
He's doing what he's doing against American League pitchers or American League hitters, which includes the DH.
Yeah.
So to be going through actually 9 hitters every night and doing what he's doing is unheard of. You have Max Scherzer go as well, who's just coming off a 20 strikeout game. Hasn't been as on point as he was last year, but that game this week I think is going to turn his season around. Yeah. Anthony Rizzo has been huge this year for the Cubs. Their whole lineup has been ridiculous.
Yeah.
You got Jose Altuve back with the 9th pick in the second round. And then Jake Arrieta, who has been top 3 pitcher yet again, if not the best, goes with the last pick in the second round. If you had a surprise pick in any of the rounds that we had, who do you think, obviously, name-wise and then performance-wise, where they went, who do you think was the surprise pick in our draft this year?
I would have to say one, honestly, like my own pick, like Jose Altuve. I mean, he dropped.
For sure.
He dropped pretty far down. You know, I was looking at pitching for my second pick, and then he was right there, and I was like, I gotta snag him. And he's like number 1 in fantasy in Yahoo Fantasy. He's hitting the ball great. You know, he's already tied. I think his steals or I forget what category it was, but he's just hitting the ball. I think it's his home run total. I mean, he already has like 900.
Yeah, and he's been like ripping the cover off the ball.
He's 5'6". Like,
I'd say my picks would have to be 2 pitchers. The 13th round, we take a look at the Turtle Squad. They got Aaron Nola, a guy who, he's young, pitching for a team that nobody really had high expectations for, but there's only 2 pitchers in baseball that have a better whip than Aaron Nola with his .85 whip, and that's Jake Arrieta, and I believe it's Chris Sale.
Yeah.
So the two Chicago boys, and then Aaron Nola, which nobody saw coming.
No.
So that was a great pick in my mind.
I really thought he was going to struggle. Like after he
definitely a sophomore slump.
I mean, it happens.
Especially with the offense that the Phillies have, you don't know how many runs they're going to be putting up a night, but they're one game out of first place in the NL East. And then my other surprise pick would definitely be Jeff Samardzija for San Francisco. He's been such an up and down pitcher his whole career, starting off with the Cubs as a reliever, then moving to a starter. They ship him out to Oakland. He goes to the White Sox last year, and now he's in San Francisco, and he's only got one loss on the year. We take a look at Jeff Samardzija's stats. He's 5-2 actually, with a 2.88 ERA, 47 strikeouts, with only 13 walks. So he's been probably their best pickup. Even if you want to compare it to Johnny Cueto. He's been one of the best pitchers for the Giants. We take a look at Johnny Cueto's numbers too to compare. He's 5-1, a 2.97 ERA, 53 strikeouts to 10 walks. They've been very similar. Give and take a little bit of strikeouts and walks. ERA a little bit different for Samardzija, 2.88 to a 2.97. He's got a better ERA than Johnny Cueto, who was the big free agent pitcher this offseason. So that was
another big one. Has to be David Ortiz
for sure in the 12th round to get the guy in his last season allegedly. I think he may reconsider that, but
320,
10 home runs, 33 RBIs. First guy at his age yesterday to hit a double, a triple, and a home run in the same game.
What is he, like 45
He's
years old?
40 years old. He's still tearing the cover off the ball.
Last night. Man, David Ortiz, and I think another small one, not a big name, but Jason Hamill.
For sure.
16th round.
Especially for the Cubs, where they're loaded with Arrieta, Lester, and you bring in 38-year-old John Lackey, who's been a stud for them as well.
Pretty sure Jason Hamill is undefeated, I think.
I think he's 5-0, 6-0, something like that. He beat Francisco Liriano the other day. And I think our surprise round we were talking about before we started recording was the 22nd round. Where we had 10 guys go, obviously, but it was 10 guys that could be starters on any team. We had David Wright, Marco Estrada, who's a starting pitcher, relief pitcher, which we're going to get into as well with that topic. Dustin Pedroia, who's been having a career year. Ruben Tejada, before he got hurt, with 3 position eligibilities as a utility guy, could have been something. We have Kenta Maeda. I was able to get Dodgers rookie from Japan, who's been really, really good. Mark Trumbo. The Trum Bombs are back.
I know.
We haven't seen those probably since Anaheim, before he got shipped to Seattle and Arizona and all those other places. But the Trum Bombs are back. Victor Martinez has been having a great year. When he comes off the DL, Johnny Peralta could be a steal in the 22nd round. And then you got Josh Harrison, 3 position eligibilities for the Pirates, and then DJ LeMahieu for those surprise Rockies. That's a starting lineup right there. But like we were saying, we're going to get into that starting pitcher, relief pitcher evolution in our league. Last year, relief pitchers were a big commodity. You wanted to get those saves. You wanted the top 5 closers, the Kenley Jansens, the Jonathan Papelbons, those kind of guys, because they were giving you pretty much every night pitching. It was somebody that, okay, it's not going to be a guy pitching every 5th day. It's somebody who's going to be pitching 4 or 5 times a week. So you're getting consistent points, and it's like having...
They're striking out.
They're striking guys out, and it's like having a starting pitcher because of the point totals that they're putting up throughout the week. It's equivalent to a guy who's only pitching once that week.
About 12 to 15 points.
If you get a guy who pitches 4 nights, gets 3 strikeouts every game he pitches, and then he gets the 1 inning of work, that's 27 points almost. So you look at that, and then compare it to this year, when we brought in these new people that weren't in the league last year. We had a lot of guys and girls in our league last year that really didn't pay attention to their teams, so we booted them, got some fresh faces in, and they've really helped evolve the way positions work. The relief pitcher spot in particular. We could look at guys like Trevor Bauer for Cleveland that I picked up. They have the starting pitcher and relief pitcher eligibility. So you can put them in either spot, but you're having a starting pitcher in your relief pitcher spot, you're getting more innings pitched, you're getting potentially more wins, and you're winning pitching matchups by getting more starting pitching in your lineup, which we didn't really look at last year.
No, I never even thought of it, honestly.
It was one of those things where if we needed a spot starter that week, we'd go and get them, but it was more, we need relief pitchers to get us these innings.
Yeah.
Because we wanted the saves. Saves are 3 points, I believe, or 2 points, something like that. And the relief pitcher spot has really changed in our league this year. We have a lot of guys that are just putting the starting pitcher, relief pitcher in both spots and having starting pitching throughout the whole week.
Yeah. I gotta say, Angels in the Trout field, I think, started it.
He definitely started it.
Turned my eye. I mean, he got Vincent Velasquez.
Yeah, Vince.
He put him there.
After his first outing against the Mets, when he was just striking guys out, he went and got him. He was texting me that night because I was going to go grab him because it was a new guy. It was the Phillies, most of the league's favorite team.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, this guy's throwing strikeouts. He's throwing heat. Let me go get him. I look at the transactions. I'm searching for him. It says he's already owned, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And he told me, I was watching the game. About the 6th inning, I picked him up because he was that good. And then he threw him in there, and I was like, all right, so he's given up a relief pitcher spot to go and get a guy who's at max pitching 2 times in a week. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, if you have a starting pitcher going 2 times a week, go for it.
Yeah.
But I was, looking at it, and then I slowly started seeing more and more teams going and doing that.
Yeah.
It went and got more starting pitching and relief pitching. I believe Mikey was the next guy, another new team, went and got... He had drafted, I believe, Aaron Sanchez, put him in there, picked up Juan Nicasio when I dropped him, and then Drew Pomeranz, another guy I had that I was testing out, and he picked him up as well. So he's going with that formula. And then I was like, all right, I started off slow. 0-4 start for me this year after finishing in 3rd place last year, only having 6 losses all of last year for me. I was like, I need to figure something out. So I started going with it. I picked up Pomeranz one week, I picked up Nicasio another week, and then I finally found a gem with Bauer while Carrasco has been on the DL. And it was when I was playing against Angels in the Trout field that I was like, I need to win pitching matchups because he's tearing it up with his hitting. He's got probably the best outfield in the league with Stanton, McCutchen, and Trout. Yeah. I need pitching because pitching gives you the most points. It's like a quarterback in fantasy football. So I was like, I need to go out and change my formula and get away from the old stuff and kind of evolve like how all sports have been evolving. And then I've seen you started doing it as well, picking up Kevin Gausman and Stephen Wright, 2 starting pitcher relief pitchers, and it's just really revolutionized how our fantasy league has worked. And I believe another team has started doing it too. I just don't remember who.
But I think it was only us 3.
And it might have been the Turtle Squad too, but his team's been really weird all year. Yeah. He's made the most moves, I think, in the league this year too.
It's not really.
And he's 0-5. But he also has Tanner Roark, Tyler Chatwood, and I believe he just picked up another pitcher too that he dropped Hector Neris for. Yeah. But it's really changed our scoring. A thing we just looked at too before we started recording was that we've had at least one team every week so far for the first 5 weeks put up 400 points.
Yeah. It's crazy. Last year, maybe 4 people.
Yeah, maybe one time, and then almost everyone during All-Star Week, which is you have to because it's a week and a half long week because of the breakups for All-Star Week. But of course, week 1 I play against the 400-point scorer from the Brigantine Brigade, 404.5. We were like, okay, there's an extra day because it starts on the Sunday and goes to the Sunday for the first start of the week for the season. I mean, so I saw that comment. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Then I go and look the second week. Johnny puts up 410.5, and I was like, all right, another 400-point. Okay, he's putting up some home runs. Yeah. It's understandable. Then I go, third week, I play against yet another 400-point scorer, 444.83, and then Steven Schneider, Brigantine Brigade, puts up 426.5, and I was like, is this really happening? Like, are we really consistently having people put up 400-plus points in a week? And then week 4 comes around, and we had another one with Angels in the Trout field, 457. Yeah. And I really think it's been because of the starting pitching, relief pitching, that we're not getting, 7 to 9 point pitchers. We're getting 26, 27, at least 20-point scorers from a relief pitcher spot. And then we're looking at week 5. You put up 403.33 in a close game with the Men of Steel. And then the Dingers put up 410.83. So for 5 straight weeks, we've had at least one consistent person putting up 400 points. And it could happen again this week with the Men of Steel or the Dingers or even yourself.
Yeah.
We're all within that 50 to 60 point range where that's an average day.
Yeah.
So if that happens, we'll have 6 straight weeks of 400 point scores.
And we're also saying it's probably because of now a hit is more instead of a half a point.
We changed hits from last year being a half a point to a full point, and that also increases home run points from 8.5 to 9. So you're having 9 points consistently, and we changed that to combat instead of losing half a point from a strikeout and a hit, it just zeroes itself out, which made sense to me. Where walks are still a half a point, and we still have errors being a loss of, I believe, a point or a half point.
I think it's a half.
So, I mean, that definitely contributes to it having 9 points. So if you're not striking out, you're getting 9 points instead of 8.5.
Yeah.
And that could win you a game.
That could win you a game, yeah.
Take a look at our notes again. And some of the hot and cold players this year, you just picked one of them up with Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yeah, I picked him up 2 weeks ago, I think, and then, I saw Chris Carter, which he was hitting hot, and I dropped Jackie Bradley Jr., and I picked up Chris Carter, and he just hasn't, this week has just been a bad week for him, so he got benched today, I know that.
Yeah, and I saw
yesterday he got benched.
Yeah, you saw you,
so I dropped him.
You dropped him, and who were you, because it was a waiver drop, so obviously, were you picking somebody up that was on waivers, or was it just a drop in general?
I think I dropped Matt Moore, and then because he had a bad one, a dud the other week, and then I picked up Lance McCullers with Houston for my pitching, so I was like, I think I can do well with him, so put him on the DL, and then dropped Chris Carter,
right,
and I picked up Jackie Bradley. So I kind of did a little,
And another thing we've implemented, too, this year was the not available spot.
Yeah.
Which was a big thing. We had some people going on, paternity or maternity leave, deaths in families, so we'd lose a player for a week or something. And if they weren't in our lineup, it was just clogging up a spot.
Yeah.
And we've also been in discussions with minor league players that you can just go and stash.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one that stashed any minor league guys. I got 2 of them in my 2 not available spots. I got Houston's A.J. Reed, who could be coming up any day now. He's on the DL in AAA right now, but he could be a June call-up for Houston. And then I have Tyler Glass now, who's another guy that could be a June call-up for the Pirates as a pitcher. He's tearing up I believe it's the International League or something like that.
AAA.
Yeah. He's, taking a look here, 1.64 ERA over 6 starts. Yeah, it's the International League. He's got 48 strikeouts in only 33 innings of work. He's 22 years old. I saw him trending as a guy to pick up. In the last day, he's been up 16% in pickups. He's owned in about 40% of Yahoo leagues.
It's a great pickup. Especially just stash him, if he does well, put him in the starter. If not,
and then I have A.J. Reed, who I picked up pretty early in the year.
Yeah, you did.
He's been a really talked about high-end prospect. He's only owned in 14% of Yahoo leagues. He's been dropped a little bit in the last day. I believe that's just from him going on the disabled list with a pulled hamstring in AAA. A lot of people think he's going to take over for Tyler White in the coming months, if not the next month. Yahoo is saying that he could be a June call-up for the Astros because they've been a struggling team offensively. And another struggling player I've seen on my own team is one almost $200 million man, Jason Hayward.
Yeah, it's tough. I was mad when you picked him.
A lot of people were. A lot of people were texting me draft night. Damn, I really wanted Jason Hayward. I wanted Jason Hayward. Now I'm like,
sitting on your bench.
Now he's sitting on my bench, and I got the better outfielder with Dexter Fowler in a later round.
It's absurd.
Dexter Fowler wasn't even initially on the Cubs.
I know.
He allegedly signed a deal with the Orioles, and then he went back on a 1-year deal with the Cubs, and he's been one of the best players in all of baseball. He's hitting .331, 3 home runs, 19 RBIs with 6 stolen bases. How can I take that out of a lineup for Jason Hayward, who
doesn't even have a home run?
Doesn't have a home. Bartolo Colon has more home runs than Jason Hayward this year. He's hitting .236 with 13 RBIs. He's so inconsistent that I'm just thinking there's something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's either got to be hurt, he's hitting in a weird spot in the lineup. Yeah. Something is wrong with Jason Hayward that he's not producing like the Cubs paid him to produce.
Oh, not at all. I'm sure they're pretty upset, but I mean, he'll come around though, for sure. Definitely, I think in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as the months start getting warmer for him to start hitting the cover off the ball. He's never been a real big home run hitter though. Mm-hmm. Minus his rookie year, I think, when he hit 20 home runs for the Braves. But, I mean, we look at some of these guys, and obviously Daniel Murphy, another surprise player that we talked about earlier, with over 400 batting average is just absurd.
Another player is probably Yasiel Puig.
Definitely. He's been up and down. He had that really great... He was hitting over 300, and now
he was in a
struggling.
4 for 30 slump.
Yeah, and he
just
just
hit a 3-run bomb.
Yeah, so hopefully that turns it around for him.
Yeah.
I've always liked Puig. I've liked him and Cespedes. Like those two Cuban guys have been two guys that I've enjoyed watching. And another guy on the opposite end being Rougned Odor for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
He has really started catching fire.
Yeah, he really is. He started off slow. Hitting low 200s. He's gotten his batting average up to 287. He's got 7 home runs, 21 RBIs, 5 stolen bases. They've been moving him around in their lineup all year, but I think he's really finally starting to hit his stride. He slowed down a little bit this week, but he had like 3 out of 4 games last week where he just hit a bomb. Yeah. And
it was just instant. I was like waiting every day to update, see 9 points on Rougned Odor.
Yeah.
But he's really caught fire.
Not only him, but Todd Frazier.
Definitely.
I mean...
The Todd father.
Yeah. I mean, after that spill in the stands, I thought maybe, he's probably hurting a little bit, a little...
And even last year, when he started struggling after the home run derby, everyone thought, he started off a little slow, and they're like, is this carrying over from last year? He has been on fire.
I think he has me now, like, 75 points over the last week. I think he's just been...
He's been raking.
Something like that. Yeah, it's just nuts. He has 55 points, 55 and a half.
Unreal.
This whole week. I mean, he can't ask for anything.
Let me take a look here.
4 home runs, 11 RBIs.
Matchup totals for my team as well. My surprise and my big retainment was Mookie Betts. Outfielder for the Boston Red Sox. 46.5 points for me this week. 2 home runs this week, 9 RBIs. Only struck out 3 times this week. It's really been... That whole team has been getting on fire.
Yeah.
Boston has really turned things around.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been saying, what if it's the Cubs versus the Red Sox in the World Series where Theo Epstein's got to go through his old team that he built up.
That'd be interesting.
Another guy struggling for me, he's been up and down to Starling Marte. He's either hitting or he's striking out.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. It's never put together. We talked about Manny Machado, Odor. Addison Russell has been on fire this week. Back-to-back nights of a home run. Really been helping me out. 38 points for the week. Second base and shortstop eligibilities. He's been a surprise for the Cubs, but I mean that whole Cubs lineup has really helped anybody that's hitting in it outside of Jason Hayward. But yeah, there's definitely been some surprise players and teams and all that kind of stuff. As we try to break this down here so we're not going too long, why don't you give us some DraftKings picks? You're our little DraftKings expert here, going every night.
The other night
with some daily fantasy picks.
I did. I won $20. I was so surprised.
That's a lot.
I know. I was shocked. I just looked at my phone like at 1 a.m. and I was like, "Holy crap! I'm in like 39th place out of like a couple thousand people." Like, hey, I'll take it. Definitely, for Boston, it was, I think Sean O'Sullivan was pitching today.
Yeah.
And, he struggled last week.
He struggled his whole career.
Wasn't he with the Phillies?
He was with the Phillies last year.
He wasn't...
That whole Phillies pitching, that's a nightmare.
So I did a DraftKings of $3 lineup, and I went really heavy on Houston hitters against Sean O'Sullivan. I picked Jason Castro at catcher. I did Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa. hoping 2 out of 3 will hit me a bomb maybe today.
Yeah, if they can tee off against Sean O'Sullivan, who's just been a home run giver his whole career, that's definitely some guys you want to target.
And then, like, my pitching, I was kind of, like, lost on who to go with, like, as an ace, but then I talked it with Kyle, and I definitely went Trevor, is Bauer?
Yeah, Trevor Bauer for the Indians.
Yeah, I mean, that's your man, so.
He put up 26 points for me this week, earlier in the week, in his start against the Houston Astros.
Mm-hmm. He's going up against Minnesota, who,
they've been a very disappointing team this year, where a lot of people saw them being a playoff contender in that division.
Yeah.
I, too, in my Yahoo, I did a free matchup on Yahoo's Daily Fantasy. I also picked Trevor Bauer. He's already pitching right now. He's got me 1.8 points. Mm-hmm. My other pitcher I went with, so I could go heavy on hitters, was the Phillies' Adam Morgan. He had a great start his last time out. I think he went 7 innings, only gave up maybe 1 earned run, if not any. And he's only, I think he was only $31 on Yahoo's salary cap, and Bauer was only $38. So to get 2 quality pitchers for that cheap, not bad at all. You went with Castro. I went with Brian McCann from the New York Yankees. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that I see who can always just pop off whenever he wants. First base, I picked Mike Napoli. He's been a great story for baseball this year. He's a little up in age, but he's really found his stride with the Indians. Second base, I went a little cheap. I picked up Cesar Hernandez, as you went with Altuve on the higher end. Hernandez was only $10 on Yahoo's fantasy salary cap, where you have $200 to spend. And the Phillies have just been a very consistent small ball team, so if Cesar can go 2 for 4, 2 for 3 for me with a walk or something like that, and he's a stolen base threat. So for $10, I figure that's a pretty good deal. We both went with Todd Frazier, who we said earlier who's just been raking.
Hopefully he will today.
I too got Carlos Correa at shortstop. Hopefully he hits something for us. Outfield, I went with a guy who's been hitting not bombs, but he's hitting for average, and that's Adam Eaton.
Yeah, he's a real good leadoff player.
Yeah, for the White Sox. The White Sox, one of the best teams in baseball this year. Another surprise baseball team. He hits more than he strikes out. He walks more than he strikes out, which is big. I had drafted him in our league this year, dropped him because he went on paternity leave. Wasn't really giving me much production. He had like 27 points mid-April, and I was like, I've got better outfielders than that, so let me pick up a pitcher or something. Now he's got almost 100 points, and I was like, let me get him before somebody else picks him up. My other outfielder I picked was Odubel Herrera. He's been a fantastic leadoff man for the Phillies.
I think long-term.
He could be a batting champion this year, the way he's hitting the ball. He's seeing the ball better. He only walked 26 times all of last season when he was playing almost every day for the Phillies in center field. He's got 28 walks a month and a half into this year.
At the plate.
He's really been disciplined and really changed his approach at the plate. And he's a great pick for any fantasy sport right now, I think, especially with daily. And my last outfield pick, I went a little cheap because I had to. I had $1 remaining on my cap, but I picked Arizona Diamondbacks. Shout out to the Diamondbacks, too. They follow me on Twitter.
Nice.
They sent me a little Full House gif when they followed me. So shout out to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm sure you guys will be turning it around pretty soon with all your guys that you brought in this year and your boy Paul Goldschmidt. But I went with his teammate Brandon Drury. In regular fantasy, he's got third base and outfield eligibility, which is huge. With the dual positions, and he's been really hitting the cover off the ball this year. If we take a look at Drury's stats really quick, I believe he's got 6 home runs, something like that. We take a look here. Brandon Drury, his stats this year, he's got 89.5 fantasy points, where all of last year, he's really considered a rookie this year, because he came up, I believe, in September last year, where he only had 34.5 points in his showing. But this year, 89.5 fantasy points in our league scoring, 13 runs, 37 hits, 6 home runs, 13 RBIs, 4 walks, so he's not walking that much, 24 strikeouts, and 3 errors. But for a rookie to be raking like that, for a team like the Diamondbacks that had a lot of high expectations, it's a diamond in the rough, and he's pretty much replaced A.J. Pollock with his production. So I'm going Brandon Drury with my final outfield spot, and you took a guy from the Baltimore Orioles.
Took Adam Jones. I mean, he started off really slow this year. He was my, I think, third or fourth pick. And but this week he's just been hitting the coke off the ball. I mean, he has 4 home runs, I think, this week.
Yeah, he's been really, really consistent.
I mean, he went up against what pitching? I think it was the Braves pitching, something like
that. He might have been playing against the Braves.
I think it was the Braves or some just
Take a look at his game log.
Very bad pitching, but he came around, and I think he's just going to keep it up. He went against Minnesota pitching.
Minnesota, okay, yeah, he's been really picking it up this week for you. I mean, because you own him in our league too.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday he got 23 points on DraftKings. So
yeah, he's really picked it up. He's got 99 fantasy points in our league. He was going against Detroit this past week. Mm-hmm. 2 home runs against Detroit. 12.5 and 10 points in our league. And then against Minnesota, he also hit a home run. Or 2 home runs against Minnesota as well. So he's really been catching fire as of late. He was a guy that I had on my team last year. But to go with Adam Jones, your outfield looks stacked.
Yeah.
Both of our outfields really, for points, because they're going to get on base, really look stacked. Both of us going with Correa, the Todd father, Mike Napoli, and Trevor Bauer. So if you guys want some fantasy news and information and some updates on our leagues as well, make sure you check out, hopefully weekly, we'll have both of us here and maybe some other team owners in the future. We want to try and get everybody on the podcast this year. But definitely check us out at soundcloud.com/the Dugout, I believe will be the link. This will be going up later tonight for Noah Papiano, owner of Vicious and Delicious. And this season he's added part 2. Yeah. Trying to go for that repeat. I'm Kyle Bennett, owner of the Fanatics. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you back here next week.